to my channel. I'm Liam. The toughest round in Supercoach history nearly is about to occur. 8 teams in the bye, um, and just a lack of rookies to trade in this week. Needed to field 18. I'm struggling to get there. I feel like if you get 18, that's an absolute um, gold, because I feel like the average player would probably only get 15, 16 for this week with the 8 teams not playing. And plus, you have the 8 teams not playing, but you probably got 2 or 3 donuts already sitting on your field, or a donut that you brought in last week and was a late out and you couldn't reverse. That's my fault with Reeves, but he's certainly my number one option if he does get named this week. However, with Segler and McAvoy dominating last week, I don't actually see it actually happening unless Clarko's really set on playing Reeves for the rest of the season, as Hawks don't really have anything to lose. They're not going to make finals. So it'll be interesting to see what Clarko does. Hoping for many people's sakes that he does pick Reeves, because certainly for my sake, giving me an extra player this week, and it's certainly a very good downgrade option this week. Unfortunately, Flynn actually had a really good game last week, so it's probably you don't want to trade him down to Reeves. So people like who have Flynn probably want Reeves just to wait a little bit longer, so they can. So Flynn can max out fully. You get maximum reward. Newcomb is another one that I think 95% of people will bring in this week. Tested to see how he went last week. 75, 14 tackles. That's a pass in my book. I think he's got probably one of the best, not one of the best, but the best job security of the rookies on this list. And Hawthorn, as I said before, got nothing to lose. I don't think he'll get dropped anytime soon. It'll be handy for this week's buys and just a handy little cover for future. You don't want him. You probably can hold an M8 spot for one or 2 weeks after the buys, but certainly a handy little M9, M10. And he's only 102k, so you actually save 15k on a genuine rookie price, maybe 20k on a genuine rookie price, which could make a difference between bringing in an absolute gun to a 9, 10 sort of player in the midfield, or like a 7, 8 sort of defender. If you can get a top 2 mid forward or defender, that 20k comes in very handy. Even if it doesn't help this week, it'll come in handy for future trading weeks. If you're all set, if you're guaranteed you get 18 this week, I wouldn't mind, and it helps you get a trade done. I think Luke Edwards has got pretty decent job security that for the next few weeks that I would be happy to bring him in early off his bye. On his bye, he'll be one of probably the most popular players traded in next week after. But again, if you need some cash and to upgrade possibly your last or second last premium spot, certainly no worries in doing that. Holmes, I don't think will play. Lynch, I just with Grundy back, even though he played a pretty good game on the weekend, I just don't see him holding his spot with Grundy coming back. Cameron also played a good game and probably will be picked over him this week. Again, there's no real other options. I think just Amati is just too much. If with to bring in 68 for 200k, and he's got his bye this week, so no chance of him. Foley's an interesting one, but again, 160 is just hard to pay up for, and also his bye. This will be further discussed next week. with no one when the buys are finally done. Options to bring in this week, Primo's defenders. As I said about last week, there are hardly any defenders to bring in this week. Most of them are got the bye, but if you do need one, Tommy Stewart has been. It's certainly one that I have, and I see him being a top 8 defender at the end of the year. Just his ability to intercept mark, his contested possessions, very, very good. Rich plays North this week, so I feel like he scores 120 this week. Probably prefer Stewart and prefer the Mills, Lloyds, Ryan and Lairds, but again, if you need a defender, he's an option, but just doesn't have the history of a top 6 defender of my liking, and a bit under, about 5% owned, so it is a little bit of a pod move if you want him. Doherty, just, again, I don't, he's certainly got his history, but I rate all the other guys much more highly than he does. Certainly changed his role a little bit. Had a poor score in the last couple of weeks, so his price is on the drop. So maybe wait till then to look at bringing him in. Daniel, again, I prefer people much higher on the board. Whitfield, he did have a poor score this week, but I still feel like he's underpriced. Just couldn't get near it. North tends to lock down, not deliberately, just a few players each week. Tend to ones that love the uncontested ball. They seem to restrict it a fair bit. Kelly got off the chain last week, but Taranto only had 100. Whitfield 74. Ward didn't do overly much. They strangled these wing players and midfield players a little bit. To be just a little bit wary of that. So don't always think North is an easy team to score against. A bit biased there. In the forward line, Hall is certainly number 1. I think he's Zorko will be probably the top 2. I don't think Dunkley will be coming back. He's just got an absolute role that you want as a fantasy / Supercoach player. Who knows? He hasn't got the best injury history, but for someone that wants the ball as much as he does during these games, it's just hard to ignore. 120 in his last 5, certainly a top 3 forward. Hawkins, be a tough matchup this week against the Dogs, but he does have some favourable matchups coming up later in the season, so he might be a little pod to bring in then. He's a little bit like Dixon. They're very volatile, so just be buyer beware on those guys. Another option who's hit a little bit of form is Langford. He's averaging 117 in his last 3. And is a bit cheaper than some of the other options coming off his bye. Certainly a trade target that I've got all my forwards complete, but if you're stuck for a little bit of cash, he's certainly a little cheapy option you can bring in. Cameron, like Hawkins, not this week against Bulldogs, but later in the season, Geelong's got a fairly nice run home, so he's a little pod that you can look at targeting later on. Zeeble, I believe most people have him at this stage. So onto the mids. There's these guns are just very good. Bontempelli, Parrish, McRae, Miller. You just throw a blanket over them this week. I feel like McRae and Bontempelli probably have a tough matchup this week, and have a tough matchup this week, but you want them in your sides at the end of the season. So depending on how much cash you have, again, I feel like Bontempelli is still number one option up forward, followed by McRae. Parrish probably would be 3 out of those options. Just buy beware with Parrish this week. Hawthorn have tagged recently, and just with Warple, so if he might go to Parrish, he might go to Merritt, but with Parrish in good strain of form, it might go to him and just slow him down a little bit. If not, Parrish will go 140 probably again. Lions with Neil back, I'm just beware at 6.13 that he might not be able to hit those 130s again, but is certainly a solid option. I prefer those top 4 over him. Kelly against Carlton this week could go massive again. I just never like his injury history. I don't think he'll be tagged. Kerno won't be able to run with him. I don't think this week. If he does, like Parrish, might not have the best week. But again, he's certainly a great option to bring in. Along with these guys which are a bit cheaper, the Wines, Mitchell, Cunnington, Merritt, all brilliant options. If you can't get to those top guys, they save you probably 80 to 100k, which might help you be able to complete your team better. I don't see them matching those top guys, but if they help you complete your team just a little bit faster, that probably 50 points you lose on them over the rest of the season, you probably gain by having that extra premium in that week. So out of those 4, Mitchell's just got the history that I love. He'll be 1. Bit of bias with Cunnington at 2, and Wines is having an outstanding last few weeks. So 3. Merritt just seems to struggle. He's a very good fantasy player, but just doesn't with Parrish about now. His scores haven't been overly monster that he can produce. I feel like he likes to peak at that. He's very consistent, but just doesn't seem to score those monster scores that we'd be wanting at the end of the season. These guys, none of them would want to target at all. Simpkin, again, I don't, unless you're really chasing really cheap guys and you're just very stuck. He has scored a few. He's got a pretty decent ceiling. Just his consistency is not the best. But at 480, if he can average 110, it's probably a tick of approval. But you just he'll be MA, and you're still probably losing 5-10 points a week with him, and the risk of a terrible score at the same time. People have also been talking about Neil. I would give it a few weeks. If he pumps out 120, 120, 120, he is certainly he'll be underpriced because he's got a fairly high break even. Just buyer beware. Neil could come back, but with his injury history this season, I don't think I'm going to touch him at all. I think they'll ease him a lot into this season. For the rest of the season, they want him right for finals. My boy Duncan, don't bring him in. I want him to myself. I don't think he's going to be 480. He might be an option soon. With Geelong's easy run to finish the season, certainly an option in a couple of weeks' time, like a Hawkins and a Cameron, if you want to go different. I think that's all she wrote for this week. About trading people, Jordan, I would get rid of this week. He did score 100, but I think just if you can get him to a gun primo, do it. People have been putting Poulter up for grabs. if he can get you a gun primo, do it. But um, he's still got probably like about 50k to make, which could be the difference between I know it's a Mitchell and a McRae. I know they're probably possibly going to score similar amounts, but um, McRae's and they're more like a difference between bringing in who's a 600 say forward. Yeah, you bring in a Zorko or you bring in a Zorko Hall type or you bring in a Langford type. I feel like that's 10 points, 10, 15 points more worth for a 50-point upgrade. But then again, it's how people's teams are going about, and dependent on how many trades you do have. If you've got plenty of trades and some decent cash generation on your bench, certainly offload Poulter. I'm actually looking to do the same this week, but there's no real rookies for me to target. I need a little bit more cash for those trades, but I am planning on probably having a full primo team in 2 weeks' time. That does include the likes of Danaher and Impey, but just with Impey, I wouldn't look to. He's played the SCG the last 2 weeks, small ground. Playing at Tassie this week where he scored 190 odd. So I will just hold. Don't offload him as of yet. So till Thursday, I'll go through what trades I'm doing and